The common refrain today, coming from all segments of society that could be labeled conservative, is that the media is just awful. Regardless of what you think of President Trump personally, a lot of self-described conservatives quietly cheer his utter disregard for the secular media, because it is just awful. The secular media normalizes gender confusion, child abuse, pornography, and promotes nakedly partisan political goals for the secular left. It's little wonder, then, that the distrust of the secular media is on the rise, with polling consistently showing that public approval of the secular media is at its lowest point in the history of this kind of polling. Sadly, for Catholics, this story is even more meaningful in light of the crisis in the Church, with many Catholic media outlets carrying on as if we lived in a period of normalcy. If accusations of seminarians being preyed upon by bishops is normal, if cardinals attempting to send Orthodox Catholic priests to mental hospitals that treat child abusers so that they can tar that priest and others like him with the stigma of the pedophile label is normal, if the hierarchy of the Church rehabilitates and even covers for an infamous predator like now Archbishop Theodore McCarrick is normal, then our civilization and Church are on the brink of collapse. These are not normal times we live in, yet the most reprehensible things have been normalized by both the fake secular news media and the institutional church media. Thankfully, some independent outlets continue to report the real news about the crisis of abuse, degeneracy, and revolution in the Church. One example of this is the American Spectator, which often bridges the gap between secular mainstream conservative politics and issues in the Church. Yesterday, on Sunday, George Neumayer reported on the absolute mess the secular Catholic media has created in reporting on Cardinal McCarrick. To review, it was the early reports in June of the cover-up of then Cardinal McCarrick that led to the current situation in the Church, where the 50-year-old crisis in the Church has gone on full display yet again. And in the Pennsylvania grand jury report and the bombshell testimony of Archbishop Vigano that implicate Pope Francis and his Curia Council for the knowing cover-up of McCarrick and other crimes, the long-festering crisis in the Church is on the mind of the lay faithful who are paying attention. And that brings us back to this story from George Neumayer. Headline: What a web Theodore McCarrick weaved, published in the American Spectator on Sunday, November 11th. Ever since Theodore McCarrick's exposure as a molester earlier this year, his cronies, patrons, and protectors have downplayed his squalid crimes. Cardinal Donald Wuerl, his successor who sent underlings to work for him, even after learning of an investigation into his abuse, poo-pooed the McCarrick scandal. "I don't think this is some massive crisis," he said. Now, Father John Jenkins, the president of Notre Dame, which conferred honors upon McCarrick before his scandal, warned Catholics this week not to turn McCarrick into a monster. Jenkins cast McCarrick's molesting of an altar boy in the sacristy, molesting another underage male teen for years, and forcing countless seminarians into his bed as a tragic foible confined to one part of his life. He said to Crux, "The tendency is just to imagine that they are thoroughly corrupt people. But the problem is that it's not true. It's a part of their lives that is deeply problematic, but another part that is not." Jenkins refuses to withdraw Notre Dame's awards to McCarrick, since he maintains his innocence and hasn't had his day in Vatican court yet. Maintains his innocence? What a disgusting sham, given that McCarrick is under the protection of church officials who could have demanded he come clean months ago as the most minimal of conditions for his continued financial support from the faithful's hard-earned donations. Of course, Jenkins' reduction of grave felonies to a part of McCarrick's life is also a gross lie. Those crimes consumed his life and colored almost every word and deed of his ecclesiastical career, from his launching of the Papal Foundation to buy Vatican's silence and protection to his systematic promotion of fellow deviants and heretics whom he knew would never rat him out. The American episcopate is largely a who's who of corrupt McCarrick cronies, a web of astonishing wickedness he spun for decades as one of America's most powerful and influential prelates. Nearly every week, a new scandal breaks implicating one of his cronies. Last week, we learned that McCarrick pal John Jennick, who in his 70s was oddly made an auxiliary bishop in New York, under Pope Francis, right at the time McCarrick's influence with Bergoglio was at its greatest, has been credibly accused of abusing an underage youth for years, forcing the boy into his bed in a manner identical to McCarrick's pressuring of seminarians at his beach house. This week I, George Newmayer, learned from a well-placed source in New Jersey that Patterson Bishop Arthur Joseph Sorritelli, who served McCarrick in Newark, is harboring a priest under state investigation for embezzling money to finance his gay lifestyle. The priest, Father Patrick Ryan, mysteriously announced in late October that he was taking time away from his parish, St. James of the Marches in Tottawa, New Jersey, in order to deal with some quote-unquote health issues. The real reason is that he has been stealing from the second collection for years, and is under investigation, says my source. He has a Spanish lover and an offshore account. You can read more of that on the American Spectator website. As always, the link to that is found on my blog, linked in the description below. I spend a lot of time on institutional Catholic news sites and on social media, and I have seen little to no reporting on this story from institutionally friendly Catholic media outlets. Newmayer is the old-fashioned kind of reporter that gets into trouble by trying to ask hard questions of those in power, and has even been barred for his efforts from the grounds of parishes in his own diocese by Cardinal Donald Wuerl. Newmayer has alleged that this is actually a violation of the Code of Canon Law to do so, but as usual, the Church remains silent on that. And this brings us to the Baltimore Bishops' Conference, starting this week. I put the request out in late September or maybe early October, and I'll repeat it here. If any of you are planning to attend the Silence Stops Now rally happening outside the Baltimore Bishops' Conference this week, if you can, please get me some original footage and send it to me. I can arrange for a Dropbox account to be set up to make the exchange of data easy. You can email me if you're planning on going. There's a copy of my email address tied to this channel in the description. This could be big, with early reports estimating that 3,000 lay faithful from every diocese in the U.S. are planning to converge on the bishops' meeting to demand answers to hard questions. And you can bet that the institutional church media will be as silent on this protest as they have been on a lot of these other stories, or they'll downplay its size and presence. This meeting is important and has evidently scared at least some of the bishops because, according to Michael Voris at Church Militant, local law enforcement was contacted by someone anonymously from within the bishops' conference, warning them that there would be quote-unquote blood on the walls of the meeting, because the protesters were planning on turning violent. This is, of course, one, nakedly a lie, and two, a naked attempt by the bishops to embrace the value of accompaniment, by having the protest shut down and the organizers potentially jailed for daring to challenge the bishops who engaged in criminal behavior, like covering up the abuse of teenagers and seminarians by priests and members of the episcopacy. And it's also illegal to call the police and level false accusations like that. That's filing a false police report. The narrative that the bishops and their cronies in establishment media rags like America Magazine, Crux, and the National Catholic Distorter, and other establishment-friendly outfits push constantly is that this is not a same-sex attraction crisis, but a problem of old cases of pedophilia being covered up by the old guard of bishops and a few bad apples in the hierarchy. The narrative is that we shouldn't let this story distract us from the real work of promoting the worldly agenda of the Church of the New Advent, like fighting climate change or opening the borders of Western countries to economic migrants regardless of the consequences of that, or even the agenda of promoting the rights of those living the Bay Area lifestyle. Don't let these people get away with this. There's a lot of corruption in the church at the moment, and men and women who should not have positions of power occupy offices that give them the power to destroy the life of the faith slowly. I'll have one story on that subject tomorrow specifically. For now, pray for the church. Things are getting worse. Stay close to the sacraments and work on your personal holiness. We can beat these people by letting our Lord work in our lives in ways that seem alien to people who promote a purely secular message. Keep praying and keep me in your prayers, please. If you like videos like this, like and share this video and subscribe, and click that notification bell below. You can support my work if you want to through Patreon. A link is found in the description below, along with links to my Twitter, the blog, and the Facebook page I manage. For Return to Tradition, I'm Anthony Stein. Ave Maria.